Cool. So I'll share some. I'll talk about the Brooks law specifically as well, but let me explain it through the context of a story, perhaps, uh, and something that we're kind of very familiar in hearing, right, in software development and in project management in general is the man months. The whole thing around measuring or estimating something in man months. And imagine we are building a house and it takes a laborer, say, 10 days to build a room. And if we were to reduce the time to half, well, what would we do? Well, most probably we'll probably engage two laborers and who will most likely complete the room in half the time. And here the principle is that the work is the same and there is a clear way in which that work can be divided into more than one person. And in that division, those two people, they really do not need to communicate much with each other. And then that helps us to probably deliver the project in half the time if we engage twice the manpower. And that's where the concept of probably man month is fitting quite nicely if you're estimating something in that term. Now, let me share a personal experience of a software development project. And so there was a particular initiative that I was a part of, and we literally only started with a two-member team, one product manager and one engineer. And after a few months, we had two engineers, right? So it's still a pretty lightweight team, three people, and to be, very honest, the project was going just fine. We were doing quite well, I think. Just a very small team. Uh, Three people are most of the times always aligned. Um, uh, could actually deliver the project through conversations. No need for Jira, no nothing. And then there was always, the kind of a real time collaboration and ongoing alignment, and everything was going just fine. However, the business thought that, well, it's an opportunity or things are going okay, but we probably want to increase the pace of delivery, and or perhaps they were not satisfied that the delivery pace was up to the mark, and they said, okay, let's increase the size of the team because we want to increase throughput. And very soon, instead of two engineers, we had like four engineers and then six engineers and a QA, a tester added to the team as well. And well, to their surprise, but not to our surprise, the pace actually slowed down. And the pace of the project kind of slowed down, not just like for a month or two, it slowed down for several months. And it took several months for the pace to actually, come back or to return to what it was when we were just a three-member team. Now, why the whole man month kind of a concept, which worked like a charm in a construction project or, digging a hole, if you ask me? What happens and why does it fail in software development? And that's where the Brooks law kind of comes into play. And I was very amazed to see that. So Fred Brooks, who wrote the law, he was a software engineer. And any guesses when he would have written this law? He was a software engineer. And the law is about software projects,
Yes.
right? Any guesses?
Just before
Or if you guys know
Agile,
about
just
it?
before Agile came in, maybe I would guess.
I think it would have been waterfall.
I think
Yeah,
way
25
before,
years ago.
way before Agile. So this was written almost 50 years ago, by the way.
Wow.
So this was written in 1975. And he wrote that adding manpower to a late software project makes it later. All right.
Yeah.
So let us go a bit deeper and find out what happens if we add more people to a software project. And as you imagine in our case as well, when we got more and more people kind of kept on getting added at a staggered, it sounds very this thing, oh, let's stagger the ramp up, let's keep on adding more people to the team. It actually ensures that every time the team is just in a kind of a ramp up mode, and the new engineers are always getting ramped up to the new context, to understanding how the code base is functioning, what are the ways of working of the team, and all that thing involves training, all that involves handholding. And not only does the new engineers take time to get productive, but the previous or the team that was currently there, they spend time in ensuring that the new team members get onboarded, and it kind of dips their productivity as well. And people rarely factor that. And if every time I heard that, oh, let's add a few more engineers, and well, things would be a bit different. I think the other variable or another factor that comes into play, which makes the Brooks law very, very useful and very legit, is the whole partitioning of work. So when we are partitioning something like a construction project, or let's say we are digging up a big hole in the ground and we want to add more people to it, software development not essentially kind of works like that, right? I mean, there are some things which are just not as divisible as a construction project, and even if it's divisible, then are they independent of each other? Are they, or we actually kind of dividing the work, but we end up creating too many dependencies and wait time between the two work streams. Like, it takes a woman 9 months to have a baby, right? Give and take a few weeks. But and no matter how hard we try, bring the best project managers and best whatever in the world, there is no way we can engage 9 women to have a baby in a month. And we got to accept that there are some initiatives or there are some projects that are like that. There would be a time where the workload can't be divided any further, and for a knowledge intensive work like software development, many a times it ends up being like that. I think I'll quickly finish it, that another couple of variables or points that make the Brook law very relevant is when new people come, then the opportunity of kind of, getting to know about the ways of working, getting acquainted to the code base, and in that process, there are times when the probability of new bugs coming in, getting introduced, or the way in which the software was being developed earlier is not the same. And a very important point is, especially in this whole remote world, is about the communication lines. Now, when there are just three people, there are three lines of communication. But when more and more people engage, like when you have 7 people at one point, and there are 21 lines of communication, because every person can talk to everybody else, or may need to talk to everybody else. And for a typical software development team, which has about 10 to 11 people, there are over 50 lines of communication that kind of comes into play. More Zoom calls, more alignment meetings, more questions, more confusions, and all this leads to kind of communication lines growing exponentially. So I think people rarely think about the communication overhead. And so yeah, I do want to present a little cartoon, but I'll take a bit of a pause here, and I'm keen to hear what your thoughts are, what your experiences are of the Brooks Law.
I can take a stab at that. So somehow, all of us might have encountered this kind of setup wherein clients usually ask across, or the stakeholders, or someone, on the hippo side of things, who's just looking at the timelines, just looking at that Gantt chart or something, and the effort it takes for that individual to move that is just a whisker, right? But what they look across is, okay, move to the left side, I bring in more people and the work would be done. So if you really see, there is an assumption in the head. And typically I've seen this into organizations where they have an engineering first culture. They don't think about a product. They don't think about people, culture, processes, right? It's all across that they think, okay, someone comes into the system and they are all ready the very first day. So nobody gives a damn, what an onboarding is, what it would take to get acclimatized to the system. So in a way, the people are treated as just an interchangeable individuals who are just plotted here and there, and they are given the right tools and right choices, they'll do wonders. So somewhere, this hits us badly, and the landscape we operate, a lot of times people are forced to agree to this kind of setup, and they are bound to fail. So I am completely in line with Brooks' law. I've seen multiple failures where, just to get faster to the market, putting up a skeleton which is not sustainable. Even if you get the first pass, wherein you might be able to build up something, it might fail in the demo, in the first launch, but definitely it's not going to sustain for longer, right? You are just a short-lived if you're following this procedure, to my thought.
So at what point does this adding more resources becomes ineffective? How do we know that we are in a Brooks law situation? Amay or anyone would like to talk?
Your productive hours go down is as simple as that, really. So if the same work you could have done in, let's say, 8 hours in the day, if you're now doing maybe 10 hours, which is now spanning across more than a day, you already know that you're inefficient. So I'll tell you what I used to do when such scenarios used to pose to me. I used to ask for multiples of Scrum units. which means that I took away their liberty to add one or two people, but I gave them the freedom to add a whole team. That degree of freedom is good. So if I add another Scrum team entirely, a separate unit altogether, I can stay ahead of the curve. I can give them more clarity as to what has to be developed. I can do a complete segregation of responsibilities and duties and then bring software to reality, right? So if you multiply Scrum teams, I'm okay with that. But just saying that add 2 more developers to 6 developer team, that's not happening for me. So then I would say, okay, then I will split the Scrum teams and I will create 4 plus 4 and then add one Scrum Master here, one Scrum Master there, and then I would run an SOS on them. That would make a lot of sense to me. So I wouldn't say that scaling is not possible. Scaling is definitely possible with a lot of work, of course, because now you have to do the same thing much faster. You have to give them clarity. You have to sketch out things faster. You have to test faster. So if everything has to happen fast, everything has to kind of gradually happen fast, not like overnight. It is bound to change. So I do feel that there is a ramp up time even when you scale. But there has to be a method to scale. You can't just randomly ask for people to join the team and then say, okay, now the work is done, please pull them out. Now they're no more build. So this happens in services for engagements for sure. In early stage startups also that we work with products, because they are cash strapped, they don't have a lot of funds to spare. They do this sometimes. Okay, when you need them, please pull a developer. When you don't need them, please pull him out, and then they bill it accordingly and stuff like that. All kinds of things happen. But yeah, unfortunately, it's business for them and not really software engineering.
So I want to use this segue about organizations and structure of organizations to move on to our next law. Or Mohit or Munish, if you have some last comments before we move to the next interesting law about
I do wanna share a little cartoon, and after that I have a question to all of you. So let me see if I'm able to share my screen. Do you see this cartoon? And isn't this exactly what we've been kind of talking about? Right? And I think that brings me to a little question that I have for all of you. And similar to what Amit was asking. So what should we do about it? When Brooks' law comes into play, what would you do?
I can tell you something that I did already, and it was a very healthy discussion actually. So I recalculated my projections, and I told them that the same graph which we were seeing right now, you can actually do a plot of how many people are good enough and how many people are bad enough. And you can actually do a projection of, because the backlog is pretty much ready, if not at least for a quarter, it's definitely out there. So the visibility is there. So adding people, how it probably slows down the velocity per person, it's kind of pretty evident. So you see that we are able to achieve lesser per capita of the team as opposed to we were doing before. So it's a call for the stakeholders because ultimately they have to pay their salaries, right? So if they're okay paying the salaries for a 60% efficient person, okay, fine, I will actually live by it. So, I mean, why not? I mean, 40% if that guy is actually enjoying his time being at the job, so be it. But I have most likely seen that they would not accept this argument and they would revert and they would say, no, okay, I'm okay with doing 80% efficiency, please continue. And that has been a win-win argument most of the time.
I was thinking about this, and of course I have some things to kind of feedback to that, but I was amazed to see how Wikipedia responded to it. I really loved their idea. And as per Wikipedia, what you could do about it to circumvent is you can actually put the developers in a plane, and they call the plan of action is the Bermuda plan, and take that plane to the Bermuda Triangle, and that will ensure that you're not suffering from the Brooks law anymore. So yeah, activate the Bermuda plan when you see Brooks law in play.
Well, you could also probably will have one of those laws coming up, is that more work gets generated. So add a few BAs, add a few product owners, and they'll increase the backlog that would keep all of these users busy.
If only business was the indicator of a good product. Anyways, I think it's time to move on to the next law, Amit.